After Final Fantasy X and the departure of Hironobu Sakaguchi, the future of Final Fantasy looked uncertain. But in 2002, we had our first Final Fantasy MMO, obviously a clear departure from the games that we were used to. But in 2006, we had an apparent return to form with Final Fantasy XII. Now, I wanted to give it another shot. Honestly, I really did. After ranking Final Fantasy XII so low in my Final Fantasy Stories ranked video, I thought I should try to reevaluate my opinion on some of the games I ranked a little bit lower, especially after having not played them in a while. I'll say straight away, I did not play Final Fantasy XII when it launched. The Final Fantasy ship had kind of sailed for me by the time 12 was out. After 11 went MMO, I lost interest because I'm not interested in MMO games, and even if I was, I just didn't have the time to commit, and I still don't now. So coming into Final Fantasy XII many years after it first released, and then not long after the Zodiac Age came available, I had zero nostalgic bias, no emotional ties, just going into the game with no expectations other than hoping for a cool Final Fantasy experience. So yeah, obviously in today's video we're going to be talking about my thoughts on Final Fantasy XII, and was I wrong to rank it so low in my Final Fantasy Stories ranked video? Of course, before we get to that, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and leave a comment down below. Let me know if you agree with my thoughts on the video today, or if you disagree as well. I'm honestly interested to hear what you guys have to say. So here's a brief rundown of the game, obviously spoilers for those who haven't played, which was originally released in 2006 on PlayStation 2, and then later re-released as the Zodiac Age version, which is kind of like a remaster of sorts. Final Fantasy XII begins with the kingdom of Dalmasca being conquered by the Arcadian Empire. The Dalmascan princess Ashe loses her husband in the war and is thought to be dead. Presumed lead of the game, Vaughn, is then caught up in the political turmoil when searching for the Dawn Shard, and then found later by the sky pirate Balthier and his partner Fran. From there, they encounter Ashe, who is alive and searching for a way to restore her kingdom, and joins forces with the Dalmascan resistance. Together, later with the help of Bosch, a disgraced knight who the death of the king has been blamed on, they aim to restore Ashe to the throne and free Dalmasca from Arcadian rule. The story of Final Fantasy XII delves into the deeper political machinations of the Arcadian Empire, particularly involving the use of magical crystals called nethicite, which is a source of great power and becomes a central element in the struggle for control. Now, to complicate things even further, we have the Okuria, ancient and powerful shadow beings manipulating people and events from the shadows. Their involvement obviously complicates the political landscape, and the characters must confront the true enemy threatening Ivalice. On paper, the story sounds great, but personally, I had a really hard time connecting with any one character beyond Balthier, who, in my opinion, was just plain cool. I appreciated Bosch's opportunity to clear his name, of course, which was slandered as people blamed the death of the king and the fall of the kingdom on him, but it just kind of fell flat for me. Fran is just there in the background and is really only highlighted for a brief point in time when you visit her home village. Penelo, who is Vaughn's friend from Rabanastra, is just kind of there in the background. It doesn't really add anything to the story. And Vaughn is definitely lacking any sort of maturity here, but I suppose it makes sense in context of the story. Now, I'll get to Ashe soon. The game does have a real Star Wars feel to it, of course, even with the soundtrack, which again, I'll get to shortly. All in all, it's about an evil empire that threatens the world after overthrowing a kingdom. In this instance, it's the kingdom of Dalmasca. We have a resistance group that bands together full of unlikely allies. Balthier, of course, even looks like Han Solo, kind of almost acts like it too, and is the pilot for most of the journey. And I mean, come on, he's even got a furry partner. Okay, maybe that's a bit of a reach, but you know what I'm going for here. Vaughn is not a good main character here in Final Fantasy XII. Of course, he's not the main character at all. In fact, there's no real main character here. I feel like they borrowed the let's use an entire group of people to tell one singular story thing from Final Fantasy VI, which is okay. But again, aside from Balthier, because he's just plain cool, I didn't really care about anybody. I respect Princess Ashe's journey to restore peace, but I just felt like I was watching a very average movie the entire time. Now remember, before we get any further, this is my opinion on one Final Fantasy game. I am not the end-all, be-all of Final Fantasy games, so if you agree or disagree, please obviously let me know respectfully down in the comments. One story point that I feel could have been fleshed out more were the judges. Now, the judges are the guardians of law and order in the Arcadian Empire, pretty much like the nation's supreme court and the commanders of the Arcadian military. Balthier does mention at one point in a passing conversation with Ashe that he was an imperial judge, and I want to know more. Again, this was just briefly mentioned in conversation with Ashe, but come on, that's a really cool plot point that should have and could have very well been expanded on. Imagine some cool flashbacks with Balthier maybe deciding that he wanted to go a different way or running away from the judge position. This is one of the many what ifs from Final Fantasy XII. I did, however, like the character of Judge Gabranth, the brother to Bosch. Again, with Star Wars having his own Darth Vader moment, helmet broken and all, interfering with the final boss. Honestly, this moment made me laugh out loud when it happened, purely because of how much of a Star Wars callback this really was. Now, Final Fantasy XII is an obvious departure from the turn-based style combat that you might have been used to, especially if you didn't play Final Fantasy XI. But I feel like what they did here with the combat system was try and incorporate some of those MMO elements into an offline game. Honestly, if you're coming to Final Fantasy XII from playing other games with similar battle systems, like for example Xenoblade, it's going to feel like Xenoblade Light. Oftentimes it just felt like I was sitting there watching the battle happen in front of me. Not to say that I didn't have control of all battles, but it just felt weirdly automated. Now this is thanks to the Gambit system, which allows players to set up automated behavior for party members based on what's happening in the battles. For example, you can set your main attacker to attack and the other two party members to auto heal once an ally's HP is lower than 50% or 30%, or automatically revive or automatically use black magic. And you can expand on the amount of gambits that you have over time as well, so you can find yourself pretty much prepared for any battle scenario. Aside from gambits, you have licenses, which is like the job system for Final Fantasy XII, mixed with the sphere grid from Final Fantasy X. You can pick up to 2 classes for each character and grow them accordingly. I thought it gave good opportunities for character growth, but overall the best thing that you can do for your party is make sure that you're well equipped. The difference that gear can make, at least in the playthrough that I most recently did, was the difference between winning and losing. For the most part in Final Fantasy XII, your party consists of 3 people. However, every now and again you will get one guest character to occupy the 4th slot. You cannot change any of their licenses, but you can change their gambits. Speaking of battles and stuff that helps, there are espers in this game. These are so bland and pointless. One character can pick a summon on the license board and then summon them in battle. Your entire party disappears and then you fight alongside said summon. There's no real mystique about it. It's just there and then it's gone. Again, maybe it's just me here, but I could have done without the summons since they really had little to no impact for me. Now, getting back to the music of the game was very generic in my opinion, aside from the credits theme, at least in the Zodiac Age version. And I don't know if it differs from the original, but correct me if I'm wrong there. Again, a very Star Wars inspired John Williams-esque soundtrack. It's like that meme of, oh, I want Star Wars music. No, honey, we have Star Wars music at home. That's kind of what the soundtrack was like for me. Overall, Final Fantasy XII, I could not wait to finish this game. I could not hit those credits soon enough. I wouldn't change my opinion on my story ranking video, especially after playing this game again. To me anyway, it felt like one linear path game with average characters, aside from Balthier, again, who's really cool and mysterious, and a decent but uninspired story and bland music. I'm really sorry if this is your favorite game or one of your favorite Final Fantasies, and I respect that it is, but it really did not land for me at all, especially after revisiting the game. The voice acting was kind of missable as well. Is this how people feel about Final Fantasy X if you didn't play it back when it launched? I'm interested to know. Now, with all that negative stuff out of the way, what did I like about the game, if anything, aside from Balthier? Well, the Gambit system was pretty cool. If you're going to do an MMO style battle system, this worked really well for automating everything. You just have to put some time and thought into making sure that you implement your party members' commands well enough to be prepared for every situation. Aside from that, that's really it. So there you go, there's my opinion on Final Fantasy XII that nobody asked for. And I realize I'm probably going to bother a lot of people here with my opinion on Final Fantasy XII, but it seems to be one of the most overlooked Final Fantasies just because of when it was released and what kind of game it was. I mean, the whole game itself to me really just felt bland. And I hate to say that because I love Final Fantasy. I'm a massive Final Fantasy fan, but as a result, I'm also a very harsh Final Fantasy critic. So would you agree with my opinion on Final Fantasy XII or would you disagree? I'm actually quite interested to know where this game landed for everybody else who has played it, I suppose, in its entirety. You know, there's a lot of redeeming qualities for this game, but overall it just did not land whatsoever for me. So that's it for today's video. I hope you got something out of it. Maybe you're realizing that this guy you watch on YouTube is just a bad Final Fantasy fan. I don't know. Either way, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, leave your comments down below. Let me know if I'm right or if I'm wrong or if you agree or disagree. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. See you again in the next video. Ta-da.